acting out. You, all tenderness is out the window. What you do to me when the cold bites blue is straight cool. Oh, it has to be you.
Hello and welcome
Hello.
to another episode of Interview with a Schizophrenic. I'm your host, Duncan Samra Singer, and today I have the great pleasure of having CJ with me. CJ is 24 and he's from the USA, United States of America. He has a schizoaffective diagnosis. He also suffers from ADHD as well. So, welcome to the show, CJ. How are you doing today?
Hi, Duncan. It's great to see you. I am doing pretty well today. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty well as well. It's quite I moved house recently. I moved to Scotland, and it's very
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's very windy and rainy
Oh, boy.
at the moment. Um, but yeah, it's kind of part of the course.
Yeah.
But okay, so let's start. So it's the same question. CJ, I want
Mm.
you to give me and the listeners a background of your mental health journey.
All
Um,
right.
so you can start whenever you want in terms of your history and give us a summary up to the present day. Um,
Okay.
okay.
All right. So it's actually pretty hard to say specifically when everything started because I grew up in a very paranoid and insular evangelical fundamentalist Christian community.
Yeah.
We were sort of taught that the world was going to end at any minute, that the Illuminati was like a real thing that was controlling the government, all this crazy, super paranoid stuff. And I was a pretty anxious kid growing up in that environment. I would hear trucks passing by and sort of misperceive them as like trumpets that the angels were going to blow at the end of the world, and I would think the world was ending. And I was kind of obsessed with dying too. I don't really want to say I was suicidal, but I definitely thought about dying all the time to sort of calm myself down. I was just a really anxious kid.
Yeah.
The first symptoms I would say started probably when I was 12. I was under a lot of stress at the time. I had gender dysphoria. I basically thought I was um, going to have a masculine puberty. I wound up having a feminine one. I was born a girl, so yeah, that was just really stressful. But my school had chapel every week. It was a very Christian school, and I would smell this horrible, like rotting ozony stench in the chapel building every time we had it, and I'd run out of the building panicking. Just I couldn't even breathe. It was so bad. No one else could smell it.
So it's a
They all looked at me.
hallucination.
Yeah, yeah. So everyone looked at me like I was crazy when I tried to talk about it. When the teachers found out, they told the school pastor. He said I was smelling sulfur and that it was a demonic attack, like from hell.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, the teacher sort of like prayed for my deliverance from the demons, and that obviously didn't stop it. I just kind of learned to be quiet about it. Um, I eventually got this obsession that I was going to become a Satanist or become demon possessed. I was taught that Satanists couldn't say Jesus' name, so I would say Jesus' name under my breath over and over and over again, just
Mm,
kind of like compulsively checking that
yeah.
I hadn't become a Satanist yet. I don't know if this was like some sort of OCD thing or what, but it just kind of spiraled. In the next few years, that sort of faded away. The next few years were kind of okay. And we moved to a more wealthy area for high school. I went to a very Southern Baptist high school. I discovered I was trans in my freshman year, and it's kind of like I just found the words for what I was experiencing, and I knew I had to hide it just because of how conservative my parents were. I was
Mm,
afraid of getting sent to conversion therapy if they found out. Had a lot of shame around it. Didn't want to be trans. I also started deconstructing the belief system I grew up with. I had access to the internet at the time and started like trading my fundamentalist Christian worldview through a very progressive one.
yeah.
And that was really hard for me, just like questioning my very foundation of reality. And there was just a lot of stuff going on at the time. I started studying philosophy on the internet and started getting all these really weird ideas about reality. I started getting into solipsism, which is basically the idea that the entire universe is a simulation and I was alone in it. It was just like a fantasy of my mind.
Hmm.
Um, I started thinking that I wasn't alone in this fantasy and that there was this like eldritch god or force or something controlling my thoughts and actions. Started thinking that reality was this like really dark place that is like a really scary world that I couldn't see yet, but I was going to see in any moment. I was going to be trapped in this like hellish world forever.
Mm.
Um, I then I started thinking that if I told anyone about this, that some sort of horrible force would come and take me away and lock me up forever. So I just kept it all a secret.
Okay.
Um, I would like go to school in a day and struggle through classes. I kind of amble through the halls, getting these brief periods of not being able to understand human speech. It would just all sound like an alien speech to me. Then I'd come home in the privacy of my own room and start having a breakdown and be like just quietly sobbing and trying to tear my skin open with my nails, trying to get hidden trackers out of my skin.
So, in terms of your unusual beliefs,
Yeah.
um, was this persistent during the day? So
Yes.
it was
Yeah, it
controlling
was.
your thoughts all the time, effectively.
Yes, pretty much. I mean, I had occasional like moments of lucidity. It's not like it was every day, all day. It's like I'd have a bad day and I'd have a good day and I'd have a bad day and I'd have a good day. Yeah.
Because what you grew up in this fundamentalist community,
Hmm.
I think that is a very powerful environment to be in.
Yeah,
Powerful in
yeah.
terms that they're controlling what you're thinking. You
Yes,
know,
yeah.
and it's the normal society doesn't control what you think, but it
Hmm.
gives you suggestions and ideas.
Yes,
Um,
yeah.
but in the fundamentalist community, they're controlling what you're thinking, you're seeing
Yes.
and doing, and I think that must have been quite traumatic in a way for
Yeah,
you,
yeah. It
because
was.
obviously you've been after something that's progressive, um,
Hmm.
so that is going against what is inside you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It was a total mind fuck, excuse my French, but yeah.
CJ, what are your pronouns? Can I just
Oh,
ask that?
he, him.
And so then you're at school. You have this paranoid delusion
Hmm.
that the world is a dark place, that there's entities which are
Hmm.
watching you if you become subversive. Um, can you carry on with that, with what happened after that?
Yeah, sure. So, I watched this one movie called The Animatrix. It's sort of like an animated version of The Matrix, but there's this one scene where the kid starts experiencing a lot of the same stuff I was, and then he gently jumped out of a building and killed himself. I could not get that scene out of my head. I would think about killing myself all the time. My parents wound up actually taking me to a church counselor. I was outwardly a very anxious kid who had a lot of panic attacks, so they kind of wanted to get me help for that in the best way they knew how. I was terrified of her. I didn't tell her anything that was going on because I knew that from what friends had told me that if you told anything to him as to a therapist as a minor, that they would tell your parents. So I think I actually at one point tried telling her about my paranoia and the hallucinations, but she kind of brushed it off and just prayed with me, and it didn't really come up afterwards. She wasn't really prepared for that sort of thing, I guess. Um, Eventually, those delusions kind of faded, but my
Mhm.
academics just completely plummeted. I had gone from being at the top of my class every year to being at the lower, like 30 or 40% of the class. I just couldn't focus in school. I couldn't
Yeah.
will myself to do anything. I started experiencing this like telepathic communication with a god who told me that the universe had fated me to kill myself, and it was an evil person who had to die.
Right.
Um, yeah, my self esteem was really low by that point, so I believed him. I had a plan to kill myself pretty much at any given moment, but my my parents didn't have real health insurance. They just had this sort of like scammy Christian health scaring plan that didn't cover anything related to suicide attempts because suicide wasn't biblical. So I wanted to wait until I was an adult and had like the means to make sure I would kill myself to do it.
So this was quite a serious, planned out belief that you had.
Yes, yeah, I was genuinely convinced that like I had some sort of horrible psychic power that would make all my friends' mental illnesses worse. I thought that I had to kill myself to save them, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. Um, by the time I got to college to study biology, I was pretty much convinced I was eviler than Hitler. I thought I was a danger to society, a burden to my family, and I had to be put down. Um, I couldn't focus in my classes. I was actually put on academic probation. That's basically means that your grades are so bad that you're about to be kicked out of school. Um, and I would just sometimes sit outside of my classrooms during class time and not go in because I was afraid of infecting people with my poison. Um, I thought I was too bad of a person to deserve to learn. I didn't want to hurt anybody.
How old were you at this time?
18.
Okay.
Yeah. I tried to kill myself a couple of times, but I aborted the first attempt and kind of nursed myself back to health after the second attempt. I didn't get any help. I literally went to the school counselor the day after that attempt and told them that sometimes I wanted to die, but I would never actually try to kill myself. So I was just straight up lying to everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
I think, talking about, um, you know, unusual beliefs is difficult enough, but
mhm.
talking about suicide, I
Yeah.
think it's very personal, very deep inside.
Yeah.
Um, so I think it is incredibly difficult to talk about,
Yeah.
um, that. Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah.
It,
Yeah.
it's something you're rejecting the whole world. Um,
Hmm.
so it's very difficult to trust someone to talk about it.
Yeah, exactly. I was also very afraid of being hospitalized for it because I didn't want to bankrupt my family due to, them not having health insurance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you didn't connect the dots that your thinking was altruistic, but you were thinking that you were evil.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was because I was a bad person. And my being a bad person would be stuff like I would walk down the street and see a homeless person and I wouldn't have any money to give him. And then I would go back to my dorm room and try to look for money for him, and by the time I got back he was gone, and I would just go into my room and just have a breakdown about that.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just
So carry on the story. I'll speak afterwards.
say that one more time.
I just said, just continue, with the story, and I
Okay,
can speak afterwards.
sounds good. So eventually my parents took me to a more real therapist who was like actually a psychologist. He was still very Christian, but he had a degree in the field and everything. He helped me a lot with my obsessions and some of my self-esteem issues. I never really told him the full story just because of the fear and a lot of the delusions around like I didn't want people to stop me from killing myself. So I just didn't want to talk about it.
Mm.
He recommended I go into it for an ADHD evaluation just because of my troubles with focusing and the brain fog and the executive functioning problems I was having. I did wind up getting diagnosed with ADHD. Also told I might have borderline features or be bipolar or something like that,
Mm.
but they never gave me an official diagnosis for that. I was put on Adderall, which actually ironically brought my stress levels way down and brought my psychotic symptoms down a little bit too.
Mm.
It's not usually what happens when someone with psychosis is put on Adderall, but thankfully for me, my thinking got a lot clearer after that.
Okay.
But I wasn't able to stay on that medication due to shortages in my state. I wound up moving out of my parents' house. I worked a part-time job and took a couple of classes, but I got put on academic probation again
Mm.
because my GPA was so bad. I was sleeping for 14 hours a day, and then I'd sit on the floor scrolling on my phone for the other 12 hours. I wouldn't even get up to eat. I was too afraid to leave the house to go to the grocery store sometimes. I was too paranoid to go downstairs and see my roommates. I would like hoard food in my room and just eat like bread and crackers and bananas, and that's what I survived off of basically.
So can you give us an idea of the state of your mind during this time?
Very foggy, very afraid. Just it was like trudging through a slog of mud or something.
Did you have a delusion at this time that you were, apart from, I guess, connected to the suicidal thoughts?
Yes, yeah, that was still with me. I mean, it wasn't as intense as it had been before, but it would crop up a lot.
Hmm.
Um, I actually got diagnosed with a severe iron deficiency at this time just because I had stopped eating so much. And that had just made everything worse. Like I was really fatigued all the time.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I was still suicidal. I would like drive my car to the river and just sit in my car and think about drowning myself. Just stuff like that, little reckless things. I never tried to kill myself for sure again, but yeah.
Okay.
Um, then I wound up meeting somebody online. That's my current partner today, and we were in a long distance relationship for a while. I eventually came out to my parents because I wanted to be with him, and it actually wound up going really well. They're a huge part of my support system these days. They did a total 180 with their beliefs, and they're really accepting of me these days.
That's good.
So that was a huge relief. I wound up moving in with my partner. I moved across the country, and unlike anybody I'd known before, I actually really trusted him knowing about what I was going through. He knew about the delusions and he knew about the other mental problems I had, and he was totally fine with it. We just kind of accepted each other. But I was under a lot of stress at the time due to being just temporarily unemployed and then losing my job. Um, and the God came back. I started seeing blood on my hands. I started getting visions of this prophecy where I killed a bunch of people in a car crash.
Okay.
I thought I was going to be tried for like manslaughter or murder and put into jail. So the God told me I had to kill myself before this happened.
So in
Um,
terms of these visions, was
yeah,
this is this like a mental imagery?
it was a really intense mental imagery, like sort of like a PTSD flashback. I would say where you kind
Hmm.
of your eyes see the world around you, but your mind is somewhere else.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um, And so I started researching all these suicide methods, and I was going to drive into the woods and kill myself. But I thankfully by this time I had health insurance from the job I had lost, and my partner was really in tune to what I was going through. He knew something was up and demanded to know what was going on. I told him a lot of what it was going on. He said I should go to the hospital. He actually has mental health problems of his own and has been there to the hospital himself, so he knew this particular hospital wasn't a bad place. So I went to the hospital for the very first time, first and only time to this day. And even though I probably needed to be hospitalized many times before that, I was there for about a week. I told the doctor a brief rundown of my history and was really bad about explaining it and afraid to tell him certain things. So he
Yeah.
told me it was just anxiety I was experiencing.
Hmm.
I didn't look schizophrenic, so he didn't prescribe me anything for that.
So
Um,
you at that time you didn't have any psychosis meds
I didn't have anything. I had no medication up until this point.
apart from for the
Yeah,
ADHD.
it was a nightmare.
Yeah.
um,
I think I guess in your early 20s, like looking back at my own
yes,
self, it's quite difficult opening up about this sort
yeah,
of thing. It took me a long time to
yeah,
open up, even to a doctor, you know,
hmm,
because I think you think, oh, this is crazy, or I can't,
yeah,
or you don't
yeah,
believe in yourself in a way. You know,
yeah,
it's difficult. It takes time.
yeah.
Um,
It took a while for me. Yeah, yeah. But he put me on Adderall again and an antidepressant, and that helped a little bit. by the time I got out of the hospital, the God was still there, pointing out basically everyone I was going to kill with my evil power if I didn't kill myself first. Um, and so I eventually was just basically sick of this. I was like, I need to get real help for this. I need to talk to a psychiatrist. So when I was released to the hospital, I set up an appointment. I told her everything, just everything, my whole history, all the things I was going through, the fact that I thought I still needed to kill myself, and she wanted to put me on Wellbutrin and Abilify and Vyvanse, and took me off the other medications.
Okay.
And this helped more than anything that had ever happened. Like, for the first time in my life, the visions were gone, the paranoia receded, the God disappeared from my life. I was I count myself so lucky that the first antipsychotic I tried actually worked and didn't have too much on the way of side effects. Like, it's like my brain slowly started to come online again. I actually was able to read books again, and like, just I count it too because I was under a lot less stress
Yeah,
from the psychosis.
I think folk don't understand that when you're in when you're in deep psychosis,
Mhm.
reading is very difficult.
Oh yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
like like you can read a few lines, but any
Yeah,
prose, it's just impossible.
yeah. I would try to slog through books, and I just couldn't get past like a chapter or even a page.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on Wellbutrin and Abilify.
Yes, that's what I'm on right now. Yeah, and then a bunch of like vitamins and supplements.
Mhm.
Yeah. Um. So after that, I really have remained pretty stable to this day as long as I'm taking my medication. I still experience symptoms from time to time.
Mm.
I still get like the feeling of bugs crawling on me sometimes. And sometimes I get like weird thoughts or magical thinking. Like the other day, I thought I was being watched like just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, just little things like that that I can kind of brush off or reason with. I also hear like internal voices occasionally, but they're I think they're more of like a dissociative like coping mechanism for me rather than a psychosis thing.
Mhm.
I think they're just like a coping mechanism for all the stress I've been through in my life, and I'm working on that in therapy, so it's getting better.
How do you feel talking about this history? Does it make you feel vulnerable, or are
Oh
you
yeah,
comfortable? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I've said it to my enough like professionals now that I can say it without fumbling too much, but it is nerve wracking.
Yeah. Because I think I'm 48 years old, and I, I don't think a lot of back to those days
Mhm.
when I was younger because
Yeah,
it's kind of painful, you know.
yeah, yeah. Absolutely.
So I can understand that, and I think it's very brave that you're talking about this, and I think it is really helpful for other folk to relate.
Yeah,
Because one of the worst things with these conditions is that you think that you're all alone,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Absolutely.
and it's so important to realize that you're not alone, and
Yeah,
that that there's other folk who've gone through or are going through the same thing.
yeah,
um I think
yeah,
that makes such a big difference. um
yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, because I just think, you have gone through a lot, and I think the your background, obviously, that would have been a huge trigger for you
Yeah,
in terms of the fundamentalism.
yeah,
um but folk go through that childhood and they come out. I don't know too much about it, but not everybody becomes psychotic, you know.
mhm, yeah,
I think it must have triggered you in some way, and
yeah,
I've talked about this in the past. I think some folk just have that predisposition,
yeah. I agree.
you know.
I think there's a lot of mental illness in my family, and I think that just triggered something within me, just genetically or otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how is your world view? Is it stable now?
Definitely a lot more stable. I again, like sometimes if I miss too many doses of my meds or if I try to go down in the dose at all, I'll get sort of a resurgence in symptoms. But these days, I'm generally doing a lot better.
What is
Um,
you've had a lot of unusual experiences,
yes,
um, and you talked about um, God's talking to you and
Mhm.
telepathy, and almost special powers and all this sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah,
There is a discussion about the paranormal with
yeah.
psychosis. What is your take on that?
Oh man, so I sort of go back and forth on that. If I let myself go too much into the idea that it's real, I sort of get into a dark place. So
Hmm.
I actually try to keep myself pretty grounded in like
Yeah.
science and that sort of thing when it comes to more spiritual side of things.
Mm.
I have a craving for spirituality in my life,
Yeah.
and I think now that I'm more stable, that I can sort of delve into it more than I used to, which was not at all. I'm sort of into like a skeptical type of witchcraft where I just do rituals for just the sense of doing rituals and like I keep little superstitious things around me and stuff like that, but I can't really let it go beyond that when it comes to psychosis. I think it's more of a psychological thing for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. In terms of spirituality, that is something that I went through.
Yeah.
That's very important in my life. I
Yeah.
believe in a loving, good God, um,
Yeah.
and I believe that in many ways we're quite, as a species on Earth, we're quite spiritually unambitious, and we're
Yeah.
quite pessimistic about it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree, especially in these days right now.
yeah. So in those terms, I would never consider um, an evil side to it. Um,
hmm
at best, it's mischievous. And
Yeah.
I mean, at worst, it's
I like
mischievous.
that.
Because I do believe that they have free will. Spirits have free will, so they want to
hmm
have fun as well. But
Yeah.
in terms of evil, I don't think it's powerful enough for that. Um,
Yeah.
and in a way, what I think is that, because when I was younger, it was inexplicable what I was going through. But as you get older,
Mhm.
I think you get a better handle on the spiritual side of it. And I think this illness has a spiritual side to it, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I can see that.
but it's kind of, it's peaceful, it's calm, and it's good.
Yeah.
Um,
In my experience, it was much more of a spiritual crisis that I went through, I think,
yeah,
that triggered it all for me. Just losing the faith I had grown up with and replacing it with something else.
yeah, because faith is so deep inside us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
We kind of have to break ourselves down to escape from
hmm
it.
Yeah,
You know, um, so I can understand that.
absolutely.
So how are you feeling now? Are you sleeping well? You eating well? That sort of thing.
I could eat better. I'm vegetarian, so I do
Hmm.
eat a pretty like plant-based diet, but I do eat a lot of junk food too, like ice cream and stuff. But I'm trying to
Hmm.
get better about that. Um, I sleep okay. I used to sleep like a rock. Lately, it's been more hard to stay asleep, but I'm doing okay on it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, but generally, as a whole, my mental health is leagues better than it used to be, and I think that a lot to therapy, medication, lifestyle stuff, and also just having like supportive people around me, my
yeah,
parents, my partner.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of different pillars to it, I would say.
yeah. It's a difficult journey, but
Yeah,
I'm glad that that tough traumatic period is in the past now.
yeah, me too. I'm excited to see what life has for me in store for me.
Yeah. Okay, CJ, I think we can close it here. What I want to
Okay,
ask
sounds good.
you, I'm going to add some music on this episode. So give me an idea of what sort of music you like, and I'll
Oh
try and find something
boy.
to. Yeah.
Oh man. That's a difficult one. I'm gonna try and think. I've been listening to Aviators a lot lately, so maybe a song by them.
What kind of genre is that?
It's sort of like a electronic genre. Let me try and I like. I think it's called Traveler Song.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Okay, it was a pleasure speaking to you, CJ.
You too. You
Um,
too.
you know, I think these are, really, your story is really important for folk who, because what we go through in this illness is really deep and dark,
Yeah,
um, and I think we're all in this together and we share our stories, and I think it's it helps us.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah, I've really loved listening to some of your episodes. They've brought me a lot of like just comfort and solace.
yeah,
I just remember even being inpatient. All they talked about was depression and anxiety. They never talked about psychosis, and I felt so alone. So it's
yeah.
really nice to connect with people who.
We're kind of like that poor cousin who's locked up in the attic.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah. Oh boy,
where they
absolutely.
don't like to deal with us.
Yeah, they
Um,
don't. It's sad.
yeah. Okay, that's great.
All right.
I think we can leave it here. Like, it's a great pleasure talking to you.
Got me acting
Um,
out.
and I think you're brave, and I think,
Oh,
like all my guests,
tenderness
it's
is
very
out the
brave to talk about this.
Thank you
window.
so
So,
much.
I'm
What you
grateful.
do to
Okay, thank you,
me when the
CJ.
Thank
cold
you.
bites
Have a lovely day.
blue is straight cool. Oh, it has to be you leaving writings on the wall. Promise me roses and a hungry haze, but now there's only madness. Got me feeling dusty. Got me feeling dusty. I can't even whisper and it's hard to see. Don't take my hand and wake me. And tell me it's a dream. A dream. The worst kind you've ever dreamed. Don't wanna lay another night here. Don't wanna walk another mile. I just can't. Please don't make me do it. I got too much to lose. I've got too much to lose. Too much to lose. Now lay me in the wilderness to dry up bits of your sweet caress. I can't wait no more. Willow trees have died and the last horn lark will fly. Got me feeling dusty. Got me feeling dusty. Please tell me it's a dream. A dream. Worst kind you've ever dreamed.